What up homies, it's Fez here, and today I'll be discussing how to give you a competitive advantage in higher FPS in Arc Raiders. Starting off with frame generation, you've probably heard about it. You should probably leave it disabled because if you enable it, it adds input lag. If you are going to run it, you'll want to run it with some sort of anti-aliasing or upscaling because otherwise the image will look a little janky. Moving on to upscaling. Generally, you'll want this on the highest quality setting possible so you get more frames but a decent image quality. This feature takes a smaller image and upscales it to a larger image. What happens is you get higher frame rate but you tend to lose a little bit of quality, so I'd have it on the highest quality setting possible. Obviously you don't need to run this. Personally, I've been running AMD FSR with native AA from AMD, and that seems to work fine. Obviously I get less frames but the image is more clear, which is nice on 1080p. Obviously if you have an Nvidia or Intel card, you can run Nvidia DLSS or Intel XeSS. I just have an AMD card. In terms of graphic settings, the only settings you really need are view distance, post-processing, and textures. You can also run shadows, but that's like a particular use case. It's personal preference, really. Most scenarios you won't need to run medium shadows, but you could potentially have an advantage there if you do. Starting off with view distance, if you run it on low, things start to look a bit janky as you walk near them, so just a quality of life thing, I'd put it on medium. It won't affect your FPS much at all, maybe like 1%, you know, we're talking like a couple frames here, so it's worth having it on medium. Anti-aliasing low because the image sharpness needs to be crisp. Shadows, you can run this on medium, but in most situations running it on low is perfectly fine. Shadows does tank your FPS a little bit, we're talking like, you know, 5 to 10 FPS. That's FPS you could benefit from in 90% of scenarios. But if you run it on medium, you're in a situation where, like, maybe if you were looking at a doorway and you were camping a corner, you'd see someone's shadow and then know they were there. But in most scenarios, like if you're creeping up on someone, you have information about them. You can check the corner in third person anyway. And if someone's creeping up on you, they usually have info on you. So running it on low is perfectly fine, I think, 90% of the time. And you'll get an advantage in most situations. Post-processing, this is the only setting that may actually provide a competitive advantage. Basically, if you have it on low, the image is less crisp and has less sharpening. If I put it on medium right now, things just look a little bit more detailed and there's more clarity. Post-processing does tank your FPS a little bit, but it's probably a worthwhile feature to have. If you're on like 1080p and using upscaling, then I'd definitely consider having this on. Other than that, you could not run upscaling and have it on low. If you're on 1440p, you don't really need to run this on medium for the extra clarity, but maybe if you're using upscaling like DLSS or FSR, then you'd consider running this on medium. Yeah, you might drop like 5 to 10 FPS, but it's a competitive advantage. Now moving on to textures. You can run this on low if you want to get the most frame rate possible, but you know, you're playing this game every day, you may as well run it on medium or high. If you have a semi-decent graphics card, you'll probably see a drop of like, maybe like 2 to 5 FPS by putting this between like medium high type thing. Not a big deal. I'd run it on medium at least, just to make the game look nicer if you're playing it a lot. Not much of an FPS impact there. Now moving on to the settings that do have an FPS impact other than shadows and post-processing. Effects has a little bit of an FPS impact, and obviously you can run this on low, it won't really give you an advantage. Reflections has an FPS hit, you can run that on low, it doesn't really give you an advantage. Foliage, it's really up to your personal preference. You can run this on medium, you'll probably see almost no frame drop. So if you want the landscapes to look less sparse and have more plants and shrubbery, you can play around with this, but obviously for a competitive advantage, you want it on low because you can see people hiding in bushes because there's no bush there for them to hide in. So there's that. Global illumination. This may tank your FPS in situations where there's a lot of lighting. I definitely have this on low. Most of these settings are just there to make the game look nicer, but if you're after higher FPS and competitive advantage, I'd put them all on low. Well, thank you for watching, and if you're looking for any gaming product reviews, I have a website called bestgear.gg where you can look at mice, headset, and keyboard reviews. So yeah, feel free to check it out. I hope it's to your liking. Alright, thanks, bye.